About the assassination attempt. I mean, listen, I know that Kim Cheadle just resigned yesterday. I know that we're never going to get the real answers. There's stuff popping up left and right. He was by himself.
It's pitiful. She's going to resign for attempted assassination?
She was she resigned yesterday.
That's all you're going to get for an attempted assassination of a president?
I say, Ivan, I go, listen, God forbid they killed him. Besides a civil war, that'd be the exact thing that would happen. She would just resign, and the buck stops with her. She's in charge. That's it. Nobody talks about it, and people just keep pointing fingers.
Not in my department of retribution. We're getting started.
Yeah. What's that noise, Cal? Can you have somebody go tell them to shut it off? Okay. So anyway, sorry, Ivan. So Ivan, in regard to the assassination attempt, and again, people say that we're crazy, but you have receipts and you have high knowledge in this, and me and Rob are on the same boat. How feasible is it? And I kind of know where you're going to be going, but I want to know what you think. How feasible is it that the FBI, the CIA, was involved? I'm talking about MK Ultra, because obviously, if you think about it, all the facts are starting to line up. This kid, 20 years old, nobody, no social media, everything was wiped. Offshore accounts. He bought a ladder. He was up there. Everything pointed to the fact that this was allowed to happen. It wasn't incompetence. It looked like well orchestrated negligence. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts? What do you think happened? And do you think, because we still have a couple months left, are they going to try to do something like that again?
Mm-hmm. So everything that they've been doing from the onset is an escalatory cover-up of that initial spying operation, like I talked about. They know that they're going to be held to account. So the only way that they survive is to make sure that President Trump does not return into office, which meant starting with a stolen election in 2020, right? Yes. Then the illegal certification on January 6th. Then when Kevin McCarthy and Mike Pence's chief of staff, Mark Short, were briefed by me to go ahead and rule on the objections by state delegation, Nancy Pelosi immediately facilitated the breach into the Capitol to frame it as an insurrection. And then the cover-up continued. And so they're doing and I said this in February, and people are coming after me and attacking me for even mentioning it. I said that as soon as, they're going to try lawfare, they're going to do all this stuff, most probable courses of action. But as soon as the deep state, and I got all the names, realizes they cannot block Trump from securing the Republican nomination, that's when they're going to go into assassination mode. So just like clockwork, when they saw that it would be guaranteed that he's securing the nomination, and we stopped the convention delegates from the establishment ones from contemplating conducting a coup within the convention, that's when the Benny Thompsons of the world, the Cheadles of the world, the Chris Rays of the world pulled off of their shelf. How did we as our institutions did in the 1960s? How should we do it to Donald Trump? Because he is an existential threat to them for their criminal, lawless behavior. And then if he comes back in, they're not going to be able to protect the Biden criminal syndicate anymore. They're not going to be able to protect the Clinton criminal syndicate, right? And all the other ones. And so nothing is off the table. And it is by God's grace. We are in the best case scenario right now. And a failed attempted assassination where we get to expose everyone involved in it is literally the fastest path to retribution. Because had they been successful in the assassination, then the pre-programming that they've been infusing America with the movies, Civil War, etc., they would have created that. But because they failed, now it's time. It woke up so many people that have been asleep at the wheel. And now we can continue that exposure. Now, he needs to be safe. I never advocate for political violence. If he can survive this electoral cycle and Elon Musk participates, Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, even Patrick Bet-David, if he can understand, and you guys can understand, that the way we guarantee a successful reelection that is free, fair, honest, and transparent is when we educate the country to demand that their state legislatures allocate their electors by state legislative mandate, meaning under Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2. That will circumvent all of the illegalities of our current electoral system. Because right now we have illegals voting. We have foreign manipulation. We have software fraud, retail fraud, wholesale fraud, machine fraud, and manipulation. The way we circumvent all of that is that, let's say on November 5th, we just have our state legislatures convene and do a live stream on X and Rumble, etc., C-SPAN for that matter, where you see your representative at the state level voting on which electors they want their state to transmit to the seat of government at the federal government level, meaning the president of the Senate. And if we use that framework, right now, Republicans control 274 electoral votes. That is the guaranteed path to not only a reelection, but it also is the guaranteed path to avoid all levels and layers of fraud. And it guarantees 100% transparency, because you know how many people can vote, the registered voter class, you know who's registered under what party, and you get to actually see them stand up and vote.
Yeah.
That is the only guaranteed path for a pristine, safe, free, fair, transparent presidential and vice presidential election. Absent that, they will not let Trump back into office.
Ivan, going back, do you think, Ivan, I know who the enemy is, and I never underestimate them. They are very, very desperate at this point. You know, in 1963, Zapruder, one camera, whatever. I think there was another camera. Easy, done deal. 60 years later, we still have no answers. We know what the hell these documents have. That's why, Trump didn't even want to release them. But they're getting balls.
It might have the name Bush in it.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
that may be why.
Yeah, weird. But Ivan, I don't think they're done. I think there's like you said, and I've said this many times, Ivan, they cannot let him win. I've said it on the show. Rob has been my witness. Kelly has seen it. I've been saying it forever. Then the assassination attempt. 2 questions, Ivan. Do you think if a window, an opportunity comes about, they will try? I know people would lose their freaking minds, but that's what they want. They want chaos. And number 2, if they don't go through with that, do you believe in something like you mentioned Civil War, the other movie, Leave the World Behind, a cyber attack, something to keep the election from happening, to keep it in the Democrats' hands? Do you think something like that's possible?
Yeah, like I said before, nothing is off the table for them. Mm-hmm. And so understanding that they will not allow, at all costs, right? At all costs, they're going to not allow President Trump to come back. That is why I've kind of formulated this strategy of how do we still create a system where we start to move back into some semblance of normalcy. It's 2-pronged. We have to get, so like when Elon Musk is subpoenaed by the Attorney General Ken Paxton, and we start to divvy up that criminal evidence by county, we will start to dismantle the individuals within the deep state that are on my deep state target list, thus weakening their ability to continue to run rampant and roughshod over all of our rights and the state's rights. That's number 1. Number 2, the way we circumvent pretty much every, short of an assassination, if he stays alive, the way we get him back into office is through state legislatures allocating their electoral votes. It circumvents every layer of fraud, and it also circumvents Paul Ryan, who sits on the board of Faux News. Remember, it was Faux News that bribed, some people pronounce invest. It was Faux News that settled $850 million worth into deviant voting systems, so that deviant voting systems could create an electoral outcome of Paul Ryan's choosing in 28 states, upon which deviant voting systems has a foothold in the electoral cycle. Okay? Mm-hmm. So if you were to read the settlement, it would be interesting to see whether or not it included things such as, here's $850 million. Publicly, we're going to say that we were wrong in everything. Tucker Carlson was lied on everything. Everything is pristine in the electoral system, and you're going to guarantee that Trump loses. Deal? Wow. They do the handshake. Wow. Done. And that's why I'm advocating. It doesn't matter if you clean up the voter rolls. It doesn't matter if you shore up everything. All it requires is a few lines of code in order to create a result that you need, because you're not going to be able to outvote the cheat. You can't outvote an algorithm because you cannot create more humans than a line of code can create ballots. The only way you do that legally, morally, and ethically is when you educate the country that the last several elections, based on all the Twitter holdings that Elon should be releasing here shortly, shows the illegal activities of these elections. And so when 100% of the country is like, oh, wow, our system's a completely shit show, and they're going to demand a solution. The only solution that I can think of is for people to demand their state legislatures to go ahead and vote by state legislative body. Do you think that a rhino, toxic, feckless, stone cold coward, gutless simp Republican that is in on this fraudulent scheme is going to stand up where the entire planet sees how they vote and they're going to vote for the Democrat nominee? You think that they're going to survive the scrutiny of their constituents back in their home district? Again, this is a state rep that lives in that district. You think that the businesses that voted for him, that supported him, do you think that the people that supported their friends, family, the broader network in their community, you think that they're going to be able to withstand that scrutiny to vote for the Democrat, even if they're in on it? I don't think so. That's why I say that, especially after the failed attempted assassination attempt, the only path for a guaranteed free, fair, transparent election is for these state legislatures to go ahead and hold that roll call vote live streamed and allocate their electors, and they will not deviate from who their political party affiliation is, no matter how much faux news wants to manipulate their ideology behind it with Paul Ryan, and no matter how much anyone else wants to censor it out. Because, again, if we get Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, Patrick, some others, key influencers, to understand this, I think that's how we guarantee success. And all President Trump has to do, he doesn't have to even campaign. Those influencers can do it for him. He just has to stay alive, get elected under that framework, and then that's it. Then we get to work. We go to town at the county level and at the federal level against everyone on my deep state target list.
I love it. Well, Rob, what are you going to ask?
Well, how do you keep the president safe? That because yesterday it came out, this was according to the New York Post, that they have the Secret Service has now, after they botched and almost allowed, the worst part of it is if they weren't complicit, then they're either completely retarded and incapable of protecting people, or the other awful option, Ivan, is that they were complicit in allowing the assassination to happen, or even worse, they orchestrated it. None of it looks good for the Secret Service. The Secret Service.
I think there's more and more evidence to support that latter hypothesis, just like there's more and more overwhelming evidence to support that it was an intentional, deliberate, facilitated, instigated breach of the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. And oh, by the way, I've done a call out. If you're in the federal government and not a principal on my deep state target list, I'll get to your kind of comment. If you're on that as a staff or a subordinate, a family member, a friend, a neighbor, and you're sitting on evidence knowing exactly what happened, and you don't come out as a whistleblower by September 3rd, we will treat you as co-conspirators. And guess what? I just got contacted today by a massively high-ranking official. I'm not going to say where, that is literally coming out. And this is just not the first. Since I've put out that tweet and call out, I'm getting hit up by a lot of people asking, hey, can you give me advice on how I should provide this evidence and to whom? And I laid it out perfectly in the sense of DOJ. If you're within the DOJ and you're ready to whistleblow because you're seeing the writing on the wall, because we're going to come after you, you know that it is inevitable. So now you're trying to save your own skin. Please do. We will spare you. And if you're within the DOJ, you go to Jim Jordan and you CC me. If you're within the White House, former, current, you go over to Jim Comer. If you're over at the DHS and you want to whistleblow as it relates to January 6th specifically, then you go over to Mark Green and Barry Loudermilk, and then you CC me on everything. So there are more whistleblowers. And as it comes to the Secret Service, I recommend you CC Dan Bongino and you go ahead and send Mark Green, the House Homeland Security Chair, because Secret Service falls under DHS, to start providing your whistleblower insider information, because I suspect not everybody was involved in the failed assassination attempt. And there's going to be some people, I even know some of them, I'm going to reach out to them today. You better start identifying who was in on it and who wasn't, and making sure that you weren't in on it. Because if you were, I don't care if we have an election, well, I shouldn't say I don't care. It doesn't matter if we have an election, and it doesn't matter if President Trump comes back into office. It helps. Don't get me wrong. It's massively helpful. At this point, America is ready to create consequences at the county and state level for all of these scum, and it is coming. September 3rd, I think, is going to be a very spicy day.
I think so. When it comes to getting to November is kind of my concern, because we saw what happened on July 13th. There is clearly, I mean, it's not the first assassination attempt of Donald Trump. The question becomes, yesterday the New York Post issues a report from the Secret Service in which the Secret Service now admits that they cannot do their job. Our tax dollars are going to waste, because they're saying that it is not safe for Donald Trump to continue to do outdoor rallies. So they are now coming out and saying the job that we're being paid to do to protect a former president of the United States, the leading candidate for the Republican Party, 3 months away from an election cycle, we can't protect them. We can't do our jobs. Your tax dollars are going to waste. The only way for Trump to be able to campaign is from the confines of closed indoor environments. That is everything that is against what Donald Trump stands for, and it's everything that MAGA stands against. I don't know if you've ever been to one of these rallies, Ivan, but they're patriotic. People have compared them to, the people that are critical of Donald Trump and critical of people who support Donald Trump, they tend to group everybody into this one camp of MAGA, that you're there and you're acting like this is the Mecca and it's the second coming of Christ, when a lot of people that go to these events are there because they're patriots, because they're fed up, because they're angry. Some of them are like me, former Democrats who voted for Joe Biden. And I apologize, Ivan, I did in 2020. I wasn't awake. I'm awake now, and I understand the consequences of my actions.
I'm glad you mentioned that. If I may, real quick, just interject. The reason why you were supportive of Joe Biden is because the very FBI censored, curated, and manipulated your feed through censorship, hook, line, and sinker to lead you to believe what you believed at that time. And the names of those individuals were Laura Demlow, Brian Otten over at headquarters. In San Francisco field office that has jurisdiction over interacting and influencing big tech writ large was Joe Pientka, Elvis Chan. And then over at Twitter 1.0, the embed, if you will, was that Jim Baker, as they coordinated and facilitated not only within Twitter, but the broader fake book. Remember when Joe Rogan was interviewing Mark Zuckerberg? And Mark Zuckerberg said, a couple of FBI agents told us to stand down on the Biden criminal syndicate laptop and basically censor it. I wonder who those two names are. Laura Demlow, do you know? Brian Otten, do you know? How about Joe Pientka and Elvis Chan? Do you know? They know that I know. Now everyone knows. Hey, Mark Zuckerberg, you were duped and you were manipulated, whether if you were operating in good faith, that is. I'm not sure if he was operating, but let's just assume he was operating in good faith. He was utilized to censor and cover for the Biden criminal syndicate laptop. And guess who was the intel analyst charged for the intake of that Biden criminal syndicate laptop to investigate it? Brian Otten. You want his address? You want his phone number? You want his vehicle, make, model, and type? He's about 10 physical miles from where I'm currently located. I'll be happy and honored to provide his details and where he goes shopping and his pattern of life every day.
And I agree. Listen, I fell victim to the propaganda. They did
for Joe Biden. You get me riled up, bro.
No, I love it.
And Ivan, you're 100% right. I fell victim to propaganda. They hid him from me, right? Like, I didn't see Joe Biden out making speeches. So when there was this narrative that,
right, and the reason why Secret Service said you can't protect Donald Trump, it's because they don't want him campaigning with. At this point, he's going to have hundreds of thousands of attendees, not tens of thousands. Yep. And they can't muster up that many human beings for Mamala Harris. By the way, her nickname's Mamala, which in Spanish means suck it. Yes, it does.
So my question was, and I agree with you, because the problem becomes, and this is what I'm worried about. Now that Kamala is out there and she is the nominee, or they're speculating that she will be, Trump does still need to campaign. Going into this election cycle, Ivan, how do you believe that they keep Trump safe? Is it, we've talked about Eric Prince, probably like the probability of bringing in a private military company to protect the president, but like, how do we actually get this guy to be safe until November? What can Americans do? What can his own team do to keep him
That's
safe?
a good point. I think at this point, he needs to have protection from our federal government that is supposedly tasked to protect him.
Yes.
Because let's face it. Let's go up the chain of command. Secret Service works for Ali Mayorkas.
Yeah.
Ali
Scumbag.
Mayorkas works for the belligerent, illegitimate, lawless executive branch resident at this point that has dementia, and whoever's puppet mastering him, Obama, right?
Yep.
So if Obama wants to put out the hit job and Benny Thompson wants to pull Secret Service, like all these dynamics, everyone knows it for what it is. Benny Thompson, you're behind the assassination of Donald Trump. We will treat you accordingly in kind, okay? Ali Mayorkas, you were behind the attempted assassination of President Trump. Same thing with you, Joe Biden. And so America needs to respond to that in kind. Just like I said in the in my Alex Jones interview, that people were like, oh my God, you can't talk about that subject. Well, guess what? I'm warning America. I'm warning the Secret Service. And apparently it was an inside job by the Secret Service, because that's really the only mechanism that they had to try to do it. So I'll say this. At this point, Eric Prince would be a good person to go ahead and have. He can put together a package. I think at this point, we need to monitor, and I'm creating a new category known as July 13th. I will be personally creating a new deep state target list category, July 13th, and we're going to identify every single person that was a government employee on that day and everyone they communicated with and their superiors. And we're going to start to use all technology available to extract all communications that were done in the run-up to, on, and the subsequent cover-up conversations, so that we can start to see exactly who was involved in the deliberate, intentional lapse in security at a minimum, or deliberate assassination attempt of President Trump. It's not going to be sufficient for you to resign. You don't just resign for attempted murder and murder. Keep in mind, one individual was murdered and there were 3 attempted murders. The president, 2 other individuals that attended the rally, and 1 was murdered. So everyone at this point is a co-conspirator. You don't have immunity because you are a belligerent, lawless, and illegitimate executive branch actor of our federal government. Butler County Sheriff needs to go ahead and take lead on that investigation, and every resident of Butler County, Pennsylvania, needs to participate in exposing every single federal government gangster involved in the failed assassination attempt, and they need to start holding them to account maximally. We need to look up who that sheriff is, and then the district attorney, and we need to start applying the necessary, let's just say, motivation so that takes place ASAP.
What's up, everybody? Vincent O'Shaughnessy here. If you want to see me and the entire Valuetainment crew, we will be at the Vault Conference September 4th through the 7th at the Palm Beach Convention Center, hosted by none other than Patrick Bet-David and featuring Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Guys, this is the place to be. If you are an entrepreneur and you want to level up, do not miss this opportunity. This is the best place to network. If you want tickets, go to thevaultconference.com. Do not waste time. This thing is going to sell out, and I will see you guys there. Peace and love. So if you like this clip, click right here. And if you want to see more like it, click right here. Stay angry, Patriots.